Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sharon, please take it away.
Yeah, it is based on a best-selling novel, which I will have to tell you, I haven't read.
Oh,
Oh
there's one.
wow!
There
You've
is
been
one.
surprised.
Haven't read it. But it is basically the story, so I can't do a compare and contrast like I normally do. It is just a film that I can review. It is a story of an. It starts off with an elderly couple, Harold and his wife. I believe her name is Marion, though it might have gone. But yeah, an ordinary sort of suburban couple. They're living in South Devon in a bungalow where quite a stark existence it seems like, because when you look into their house, everything is spotless. There's no pictures on the walls. There's no ornaments. It's literally just settee, armchairs, television. That's it in the front room. Their lives look almost like quite stark. And then one day, a handwritten letter is delivered to the house, which is quite unusual because they don't get correspondence. And this letter is from a former friend of Harold's who he hasn't seen for 30, 40 years. And it's basically telling him that she's now in a hospice in Berwick on Tweed and that she's receiving end of life care. And she just wanted to basically say goodbye and that she valued their friendship that they had many years ago. And Harold decides that he's going to write back to say that I'm really sorry about this news, but sending you my best regards from Harold. And one morning he goes out to post it, and he walks to the nearest post office and at the post box and thinks, oh, I don't know. So then he thinks, I'll walk to the next post box and I'll post it there. I just need to think about this, try if this is the right thing to do. And then he walks to the next post office and the post box, and he decides, actually, I'm still not sure. So he then walks to the next, keeps walking to the next post box, next post box. And then he basically has this sort of moment where he thinks, I'm not going to post this letter. I'm going to take it to her and I'm going to walk there. I'm going to walk from South Devon to Berwick upon Tweed, which
Wow.
is, as someone says in the film, that's 500 miles. And he takes nothing with him. He basically just starts walking. And the end of the first day, he calls his wife and says, I'm going to walk to see Queenie. Queenie is his friend of his. And looking back at history, if you look at pilgrimages, they're normally done for sort of several reasons. There's a quest element to it. You're looking to find something at the end of your pilgrimage, or you're doing it for some sort of penance, or you're looking for something. You're looking for an answer to something by going on this pilgrimage. It's an emotional journey. So there's like these three elements, and they all do combine in Harold's story. And so as he walks, he encounters different people, and each person he meets, he gets something different from them. One of them is a man who um, sort of almost like he's once a confidant. He's a young man who's been a drug addict, and he's looking for a father figure. And there's another woman who's an immigrant who was a doctor in her own country, but now she's cleaning, and she takes him in and sort of looks after him. And it's like the kindness of strangers. And the further he walks, the more he sort of leaves behind. He decides that he's not going to, because initially he sort of stays in B&Bs and hotels, and he uses his credit cards to buy himself what he needs. And then he decided to know that he's actually doesn't want to make it easy on himself. He wants to do it as simply as possible. So he posts back his cards, his credit cards, his wallet, his phone, and his watch to his wife, and says, I'm going to walk to there, and I'm going to rely entirely upon what I can find, what I can forage, or what people's given me. I'm going to do this in a different way. And so he basically starts walking. And you see sort of different points on the way. You see him arriving at Exeter, and then he walks through Bath, and then you see him in Sheffield, and he's sort of walking throughout the country. And he's doing this quite happily, just literally relying upon the kind of strangers, sleeping in barns. He finds a sleeping bag, so he just sleeps in the woods. He just makes his way up country, but then he meets this one guy who says, oh, can I take your picture? And then he contacts the papers, and suddenly he becomes this like mini celebrity where where he goes, it's like, you're Harold Fry, and we're going to walk with you. And then before he knows it, this sort of he becomes like the head pilgrim in this sort of Canterbury Tales, sort of all these people suddenly swarm around him, and it's like a mini Glastonbury everywhere he goes, where they set up
It
tents.
sounds very. It sounds very Forrest Gump.
Yeah, I was
but
going to
he has,
say exactly.
yeah,
I was going to say exactly the same, Toes.
yeah. So it's yes, it's so it has those elements where he sort of draws, where he's sort of just like running along, doesn't people just start running with him, and
Carry on, I'll be right back.
this is where they start walking with him, and this sort of circus of appears around him basically, and yeah, he has these sort of encounters, and it says when he gets this sort of collection of people around him, he realizes that people are sort of investing in him their own ideas of what it should be about. But really, all he wants to do is walk to see Queenie, and he lets, and all these other people are doing it for. They're just like joining him, and he's like, no, no, no. And one of them in the end says that you've got to leave all this behind. This is slowing you down. This is taking too much of your time.
Is it
behind and go?
Sharon, can I ask you, is it always good weather, or does he ever get caught out in the rain and
Rain,
stuff?
yeah, there is rain and there is sort of bad weather. A lot of it is set in the autumn because he's eating blackberries, so it's sort of like end of summer, autumn. But yeah, there is rain, there is cold, and you do see him sort of a bit miserable at times. But yeah, so it's like this pilgrimage, and he does make it to the end, but I won't tell you about it. But on the way, you do see him examining the elements of his life what has caused him the most pain. One of them is the relationship with his son, and to some degrees, the sort of how him and his wife have become sort of like they're together, but they're separate. Their lives are like running parallel with each other, that they don't really interact. As one of them says, we haven't really been married for 25 years, and then you look back and you see his back through this sort of backstory, what happened sort of 25 years ago that caused this. Not enough to separate them, as in that they left each other. They still stayed together, but there was always this like barrier, invisible barrier between them. And it's both of them sort of work through, just their history together. So Harold is walking, and she's sort of walking through it, not moving, but going on a similar journey. So it's interesting how they use these parallels between the ideas of old pilgrimage. You have a quest, you're seeking something, and you're seeking redemption, or you're offering it as a penance. And so there's those elements running through it, that he's seeking something, he wants to see Queenie, he's seeking repentance because of something that happened in the past, and that quest element, that looking for peace. So there's all those elements are in it, which it's interesting.
All right, cool. So, sorry, I'm muted. You can't hear me. So, what did you think of it?
Yeah, I like it. Part of me, because it's not religious, he's not a religious man, and part of me is thinking, as a Christian watching it, I understand what pilgrimage means as a Christian, and ultimately you're seeking the face of God, aren't you? Or you're seeking some sort of something in your faith. Where he's a man without faith, to me, it's a bit pointless. So that's just me.
Yep.
And so I thought it was interesting, but ultimately I'll be like, oh, it's pointless if you're just doing it. So I didn't find it had any sort of spiritual depth to it. I found it interesting in terms that he went on this emotional journey, and he sort of reconciled himself to sort of elements of his past. But to me, it lacked any of that sort of spiritual element of that reconciliation or that penance or seeking a greater understanding of their place in the world. So I found that dissatisfying, because I thought when you see pilgrimage, I'm thinking, oh, hopefully there'd be some sort of like spiritual revelation, and there isn't. So
is it Jim Broadbent? Is it Jim Broadbent?
Jim Broadbent, yeah.
Yeah. See, I mean, with Jim Broadbent, I got a bit fed up with him.
Yeah,
I got a bit fed up with him. Can I say that?
I was going to say, this is Sean. Sean's about to sort of lambast another national beloved treasure. You're going to put him on the shelf with Stanley Tucci.
Yeah, national treasures. I know, it's horrible. What do they call them? Iconoclast, isn't it, or something?
Yeah. So I think for me it was slightly dissatisfying. And again, he was likable, but he is like, his character is like trademark Jim Bent, likable.
Yeah.
So I was sympathetic. So he wasn't like a curmudgeon, the old man, because he was like this mellow, mild old man. People probably would help him. If he'd been an old curmudgeon stomping along, people probably wouldn't. Maybe not been as kind. But anyway, I find it an interesting film. It made me think about different things. Probably not what the filmmaker or the writer intended. But no, I liked it. But I would only give it a 3.
Yeah.
Because I thought it was engaging for what it was, but ultimately it left me slightly dissatisfied with it on any deeper level. To me, it was it was interesting, but it didn't actually go any deeper than I thought it could have done.
All right, so 3 stars for The Unlikely Pilgrimage of Harold Fry, longest title this week.